I remember the day I first met Sarah like it was yesterday. It was a sunny afternoon, the kind that makes everything feel alive and promising. We were both at a mutual friend's birthday party, and she stood across the room, her laughter ringing out like music. Her hair caught the light, framing her face in a golden halo. I was drawn to her warmth, her smile, and the way she made everyone around her feel special. I approached her, heart pounding, and we spent the evening talking, sharing stories and laughing. By the time the party ended, I knew I wanted to spend more time with her. Fast forward a few years and we were happily married, or at least I thought we were. Our lives settled into a comfortable rhythm. We had our routines: Saturday morning brunches at our favorite cafe, movie nights cuddled up on the couch, and spontaneous weekend getaways. We shared dreams, plans for the future, and the simple joys of life. I thought we were building something beautiful together. But life, as it often does, has a way of throwing curveballs. I had always trusted Sarah completely, believing that our relationship was built on a solid foundation of love and loyalty. I never thought I would have to question her fidelity. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but we always navigated through them together. I thought we communicated well, that we understood each other deeply. In the weeks leading up to the discovery, I noticed some changes in her behavior. She seemed more distracted, often lost in thought, and occasionally distant. At first, I attributed it to work stress. Sarah had recently taken on a demanding project at her job, and I figured she was just overwhelmed. I wanted to be supportive, so I gave her space, hoping she'd come to me when she was ready to talk. But as days turned into weeks, that nagging feeling in my gut began to grow. I brushed it off, telling myself I was being paranoid. After all, we had built a life together, a partnership based on trust and love. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the little things started to pile up. A missed call here, a late night at work there. It was all so subtle, yet it gnawed at me like a persistent itch I couldn't scratch. Then came the day that would change everything. I was sitting at my desk, staring blankly at my computer screen, when my phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email, and the sender's name caught me off guard. It was from a private investigator, someone I had never heard of before. My heart raced as I opened the message, and what I saw made the world around me shift. The email contained photos, detailed notes, and timestamps, evidence of my wife's infidelity with this private investigator. My mind raced as I read through the contents. The betrayal felt like a punch to the gut. My heart sank as I tried to comprehend the reality that was unfolding before me. How could Sarah do this? How could she betray everything we had built together? In that moment, the happiness and trust I had felt just days before began to unravel. I felt a mix of disbelief and anger, my emotions swirling within me like a storm. I wanted to scream, to cry, to confront her right then and there. But I didn't. I sat in silence, staring at the screen, trying to process the chaos that had just erupted in my life. As I reflected on the happy moments we shared, the laughter and love, they all felt tainted now. The memories that once brought me joy were overshadowed by this dark revelation. I was left grappling with the reality that the woman I thought I knew, my partner, my love, had been living a double life. I was overwhelmed with questions. How long had this been going on? Was it just a fling, or was there something deeper? I felt like a fool, my heart heavy with betrayal, and I had no idea how to move forward. The moments following my discovery were a blur. I sat frozen at my desk, staring blankly at the email as if it would somehow change if I looked at it long enough. My mind raced with disbelief. I felt as if I were watching a horror movie unfold, unable to grasp that the protagonist was me. The images played in my mind like a broken record, each one more painful than the last. I could hardly breathe. I took a deep breath, hopping to steady myself, but it didn't help. I felt the walls closing in around me. The air in the room was thick with tension, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest like a war drum. I had to confront her. There was no other option, but how could I do it? How could I face the woman I loved, the woman I had trusted, knowing what I now knew? As the minutes dragged on, I decided to gather my thoughts. I needed a plan, a way to confront her that wouldn't turn into a shouting match. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart. I picked up my phone and dialed her number, my hands shaking as I did. The phone rang, and each tone felt like a countdown to an inevitable explosion. "Hey babe, I'm just wrapping up some work. I'll be home in about an hour," she said cheerfully. The sound of her voice, so innocent and warm, sent a shiver down my spine. I forced a smile, knowing she couldn't see me, and tried to keep my voice steady. "Sounds good. I'll be here," I replied, my heart racing. I hung up and sat in silence for what felt like an eternity. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, each second, mocking me, reminding me of the betrayal lurking just beneath the surface. When she finally walked through the door, her smile lit up the room, but it also made my heart ache. I wanted to drown in her happiness, but I was drowning in anger and confusion. She looked radiant, her hair cascading down her shoulders, and I couldn't help but think about how someone else had seen her like this too. I swallowed hard, fighting back the tears that threatened to spill. "Hey, you look so nice today," she said, her voice bright. I forced a smile, but it felt like a mask. "Thanks," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Dinner's almost ready. I made your favorite," she said, moving toward the kitchen. I watched her, my mind racing. How could she act so normal? Didn't she realize the weight of what I knew? I took a deep breath and decided it was time to confront her. "Sarah, can we talk?" I said, my voice steady but low. She turned to me, her smile fading as she sensed the gravity in my tone. I took a step closer, feeling the air between us thicken with tension. "I received an email today," I continued, my heart pounding in my chest, "from a private investigator." The color drained from her face, and for a moment I thought I saw panic in her eyes. What are you talking about?" she stammered, but I could see the truth flickering behind her facade. "I know about you and him," I said, my voice rising slightly. "The photos, the notes, everything." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I watched as her expression shifted from confusion to realization, and then to desperation. "Please, just let me explain," she pleaded, her voice trembling. I felt a mix of anger and heartbreak wash over me. There was no way she could explain this away. "Explain what? How you betrayed me, how you chose him over me. I don't even recognize you anymore," I shouted, the pain spilling over. I could see the tears welling in her eyes, and it made my heart ache, but I was too angry to care. "I never meant for this to happen. It was a mistake," she cried, her voice breaking. I was feeling lost. "And he was just there. It didn't mean anything." "Didn't mean anything," I echoed incredulously. "You think that makes it better? You let him into our lives, into our home. You let him see you in a way I never got to anymore." My voice was rising, filled with hurt and disbelief. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed, her hands trembling. "I thought I could handle it. I thought I could keep it separate. I never wanted to hurt you." "Clearly, you didn't think this through at all," I shot back. The pain coursing through me was unbearable, and I could feel my world crumbling. I wanted to shut her out, to push her away, but a small part of me still wanted to believe her. As she continued to plead for my understanding, I felt the walls of my heart hardening. I didn't want to hear her excuses. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to make her feel the devastation she had caused. But I also felt lost, torn between love and betrayal. In that moment, I realized I was standing at a crossroads. I could either walk away and save myself from further pain, or try to salvage what was left of our relationship. But how could I ever trust her again? The atmosphere in the room felt suffocating as Sarah continued to cry, her hands trembling as they reached out toward me. I could see the desperation in her eyes, but all I felt was a cold, gnawing emptiness. Every word she spoke only deepened the chasm that had formed between us. I was no longer the husband she had betrayed. I was a stranger, a man grappling with the fallout of her actions. "Please, just give me a chance to explain," she pleaded again, her voice shaky. "I never wanted it to go this far. It was just someone to talk to, someone who understood me when I felt so alone. I was caught up in my own insecurities. You have to believe me." "Believe you?" I shot back, my voice rising again. "You think I can just take your word for it? You think that's enough to fix this?" I gestured wildly, my frustration boiling over. "You were unfaithful, Sarah. You chose to let someone else into our lives. You let him into your heart." She flinched at my words, and for a brief moment I felt a pang of guilt for being so harsh. But any sympathy I might have felt was drowned in the overwhelming tide of betrayal. I had given her my heart, my trust, and she had shattered it into a million pieces. I know I messed up, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But can't we talk about it? Can't we try to make sense of this together? Together, I echoed, incredulous. How can we possibly be together after this? How can I trust you again? You've shown me exactly who you are, and it's not the woman I fell in love with. You've turned our life into a lie. Her face crumpled at my words, and I could see the hurt etched across her features. I wanted to reach out to comfort her, but the betrayal was too raw. I was still grappling with the reality that the woman I had shared my life with had been lying to me, day in and day out. I loved you, Sarah, I said, my voice softer now but still carrying the weight of my hurt. I thought we were building a life together. I thought you were my partner, but you've destroyed everything. I don't even know who you are anymore. I'm still me, she cried, desperation lacing her tone. I made a mistake. I let my insecurities get the best of me. I never stopped loving you. Please don't throw everything away because of one mistake. One mistake, I scoffed. This isn't just a mistake. This is a betrayal that cuts deep. You've chosen to be with someone else, someone who was supposed to be a stranger to us. How can I forget that? How can I move forward knowing that you let him into our lives? She stepped closer, her eyes pleading. I'll do anything to make it right. I'll go to therapy. I'll cut him out of my life completely. Just give me a chance. I can change. We can change. I shook my head, feeling the weight of her words but not knowing if I could believe them. You say that now, but how can I trust you? How can I believe anything you say after this? The silence hung heavy between us, filled with the echoes of our shared history. I thought about the moments we had shared, the laughter, the plans, the intimacy. All of it felt tainted now. I felt like a fool for not seeing the signs, for not questioning the little things that had seemed off. Maybe we need some time apart, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. The thought of separation felt like a dagger to my heart, but I knew I needed space to breathe, to process everything. Please don't say that, she cried, tears streaming down her face. I can't lose you, I can't lose us. Maybe you already have, I replied, my heart breaking as I said the words. You made that choice when you decided to be with him. She fell silent, her shoulders shaking as she tried to hold back her tears. I felt a mixture of anger and sadness welling up inside me, torn between the love I once felt and the betrayal that now defined our relationship. I need time to think, I said firmly, turning away from her. I don't know what I want anymore. As I walked away, I felt the weight of her gaze on my back, but I couldn't turn around. I needed to create distance, to distance myself from the pain that had suddenly consumed my life. The woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted completely, had betrayed me in the most profound way possible. And now I was left standing amidst the ruins of our relationship, unsure of what lay ahead. I spent the next few days in a haze, trying to process everything that had happened. I moved through the motions of daily life, but my heart felt heavy. I couldn't escape the memories of us, the laughter, the love, now all overshadowed by the betrayal. I thought about the implications of her affair, the way it had shattered my perception of love and trust. How could I rebuild from this? How could I ever look at her the same way again? The questions swirled in my mind like a storm, and I felt lost in the chaos. In the days following our confrontation, I found myself trapped in a whirlwind of reflection. The more I thought about Sarah's infidelity, the more I wrestled with my own emotions. I spent hours replaying our relationship in my mind, searching for signs that I had missed, moments I had overlooked. It was as if I was trying to piece together a shattered puzzle, but the pieces no longer fit together. I took long walks to clear my head, but the scenery blurred around me. I passed familiar places, our favorite cafe, the park where we spent countless afternoons, the streets where we shared our dreams. Each location felt like a reminder of the life we had built together, now tainted by betrayal. I felt like a ghost, haunting the remnants of a love that had been so vibrant and real. I couldn't help but wonder about the motivations behind Sarah's affair. What had driven her to seek comfort in someone else? Was it a cry for help, a moment of weakness, or something deeper? I had always believed that love was built on trust and loyalty, yet here I was, grappling with the painful reality that those ideals could shatter so easily. As I sat alone in my living room one quiet evening, I began to analyze our relationship more critically. I remember the early days full of passion and connection, the way we would talk for hours about our dreams and aspirations. But as time passed, life took over. Work stress, responsibilities, and the routine of daily life had begun to dull the spark we once shared. Had I taken her for granted? Had I stopped nurturing our relationship, allowing it to stagnate? I felt a pang of guilt, questioning whether I could have done something differently. Perhaps I should have noticed her growing distance, her discontent. The thought of it gnawed at me. But then a flicker of anger surged within me. No matter what was happening between us, she had made a choice, one that betrayed everything we had built together. I reached out to a close friend, Mark, hoping that talking it out would provide some clarity. He listened patiently as I recounted the events, his expression shifting from concern to anger on my behalf. "You deserve better, man. You're a good guy and you didn't deserve this," he said, his voice steady. "But what if she really is sorry?" I replied, my voice tinged with uncertainty. "What if she wants to change? Can I really throw everything away after one mistake?" Mark shook his head. "It's not just one mistake. It's a breach of trust. You can't build a relationship on lies. You deserve someone who will be honest with you, who will fight for you, not betray you." His words struck a chord within me, and I began to realize that I needed to prioritize my own well-being. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became that I couldn't simply sweep this under the rug. I had to confront the reality of our situation, even if it meant letting go of the life I had envisioned with Sarah. As the days turned into weeks, I started to seek closure. I realized that I needed to process my feelings, to understand the emotional turmoil that had consumed me. I reached out to a therapist, hoping to gain insight into my pain and the path forward. In our sessions, I began to explore the complexities of love and loyalty. I learned that infidelity often stems from unmet needs, both emotional and physical. I reflected on my own experiences and how the stresses of adult life had eroded the intimacy we once shared. The therapist encouraged me to examine my feelings, to acknowledge the anger, sadness, and confusion that had become my constant companions. I started to see things more clearly. I realized that while Sarah's actions were unforgivable, they also reflected her own struggles. She had sought validation outside our relationship, perhaps because she felt neglected or unappreciated. But that didn't absolve her of responsibility. It merely added another layer of complexity to the situation. As I continued to unpack my feelings, I found myself grappling with the concept of forgiveness. Did I want to forgive her? Could I? The thought of it felt like a heavy weight on my chest. Part of me wanted to forgive her, to believe that love could triumph over betrayal. But another part of me felt that forgiving her would mean allowing her to hurt me again. I began to understand that forgiveness wasn't about condoning her actions. It was about freeing myself from the burden of resentment. But was I ready to take that step? I didn't know. Each day was a battle between my heart and my mind, and I felt like I was walking a tightrope, trying to find balance amidst the chaos. In the quiet moments, I thought about what I truly wanted. Did I want to rebuild our relationship, or was it time to let go? The answers eluded me, but I knew I had to keep moving forward. I had to prioritize my own healing, even if it meant facing the painful truth that Sarah and I might never find our way back to each other. As I left my therapist's office one afternoon, I felt a flicker of hope for the future, a realization that I could emerge from this experience stronger. I might not know the path ahead, but I was determined to find my way, whatever that looked like. The journey toward closure was anything but straightforward. Each day felt like a new chapter in an unwritten book, filled with uncertainty and the weight of unresolved emotions. I continued to seek therapy, finding solace in the conversations that allowed me to process my feelings. The therapist encouraged me to explore my thoughts about Sarah, about love, and about trust. During our sessions, I learned the importance of setting boundaries. I realized that if I were to heal, I needed to create space for myself, away from the hurt that had permeated my life. I began to establish emotional boundaries. With Sarah, limiting our interactions to necessary conversations about practical matters. It felt strange at first, but I knew it was essential for my healing process. I started to focus on my own interests, rediscovering hobbies that had fallen by the wayside during our marriage. I took up running, finding that the rhythm of my feet on the pavement helped clear my mind. I signed up for a cooking class, something I had always wanted to do, and it felt liberating to engage in activities that were solely for me. I surrounded myself with supportive friends who lifted my spirits and reminded me of my worth. Yet, despite my efforts to move forward, I still found myself grappling with feelings of anger and sadness. There were days when I would spiral into a pit of despair, questioning my self-worth and wondering what I could have done differently. I would replay conversations in my mind, searching for clues that might explain her betrayal. One evening, I decided to reach out to Sarah to discuss the practicalities of our separation. I hadn't seen her in weeks, and while I missed her, I also felt a sense of relief in our distance. We agreed to meet at a neutral location, a small cafe that had once been our favorite spot. As I walked through the door, my heart raced. I was filled with a mix of apprehension and determination. When I saw her, my breath caught in my throat. She looked different, her eyes were red and puffy, and there was a heaviness about her that hadn't been there before. I felt a pang of sympathy, but I quickly reminded myself of the hurt she had caused. I took a seat across from her, forcing myself to maintain a calm demeanor. "Thanks for meeting me," I said, my voice steady. "I think we need to talk about everything that's happened." She nodded, her expression somber. "I know. I've been doing a lot of thinking too. I'm really sorry for what I did. I never wanted to hurt you." I felt a mix of anger and sadness surge within me, but I took a deep breath. "I appreciate your apology, but it doesn't change what happened. I need to be honest about how I'm feeling. I can't just pretend everything is okay." "I understand," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know I've shattered your trust, and I don't expect you to forgive me right away, if ever. I just want you to know that I'm truly sorry." As we talked, I felt the walls between us slowly starting to crumble. I shared my feelings of betrayal, the confusion that had engulfed me since the day I discovered her affair. I told her how I had been working on myself, trying to heal and regain my sense of self-worth. "I've realized that I can't keep living in the shadow of what happened," I said, my voice firm. "I need to focus on my own happiness and well-being. I don't know if there's a way for us to go back to what we had, but I do know that I can't keep holding on to the past." Tears welled in her eyes as she listened. "I understand. I've been selfish, and I know I've hurt you deeply. I wish I could take it all back. I never meant to put you through this pain." I felt a flicker of empathy for her, but I quickly reminded myself that empathy didn't mean I needed to forgive her. "I think it's best for both of us to take some time apart. We need to figure out who we are outside of this relationship," I said, my voice steady. "I want to heal, and I need the space to do that." She nodded, her expression resigned. "I understand. I'll respect your wishes. I just hope that one day you can find it in your heart to forgive me." "Maybe," I replied, feeling a mix of emotions swirling inside me. "But right now, I need to focus on moving forward." As we parted ways that day, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It was the first step toward closure, a step that allowed me to reclaim my life. I knew the road ahead would be rocky, filled with ups and downs, but I felt determined to forge my path. In the weeks that followed, I continued to focus on my own healing. I surrounded myself with friends who supported me, engaged in activities that brought me joy, and slowly began to rediscover my identity. I learned to embrace the uncertainty of the future, understanding that healing is a journey, not a destination. I also began to reflect on the lessons I had learned from this experience. I realized that love is complex, that loyalty is fragile, and that trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. I understood that my worth was not defined by someone else's actions, and that I had the power to shape my own narrative. As I moved forward, I kept reminding myself that it was okay to feel pain, to grieve the loss of what once was. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means finding a way to live with the scars and emerging stronger on the other side. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself navigating the complexities of healing and self-discovery. I had moved out of our shared home and into a small apartment that felt like a fresh start. The space was bare, but it was mine, a blank canvas where I could begin to paint a new life. I decorated it with a few personal touches, each item a reminder of my journey toward reclaiming my identity. I continued to attend therapy, which became a cornerstone of my healing process. My therapist guided me through the emotional aftermath of the betrayal, helping me understand that it was okay to feel angry, sad, or confused. I learned to embrace my feelings rather than suppress them. Each session became a safe space where I could unpack the weight of my experiences, and I began to see glimmers of hope amidst the pain. One evening, as I was reflecting on my journey, I realized that I had begun to find peace. I had stopped obsessing over the betrayal, the what-ifs that had plagued my thoughts for so long. Instead, I focused on the present and the possibilities that lay ahead. I started exploring new interests, meeting new people, and allowing myself to be vulnerable again. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during my marriage, and their support became a lifeline. We shared laughter, adventures, and late-night conversations that reminded me of the joy of human connection. I felt a sense of camaraderie that had been missing in my life, a reminder that I was not alone in my struggles. As I continued to heal, I also took the time to reflect on what I truly wanted in a relationship moving forward. I realized that I craved honesty, open communication, and a deep emotional connection. I wanted someone who valued loyalty and trust as much as I did, someone who would stand by me through the storms of life. It was during this period of introspection that I stumbled upon a local support group for individuals who had experienced infidelity. At first, I was hesitant to join, fearing that it would only dredge up painful memories. But I felt a pull to connect with others who had walked similar paths, to share my story and hear theirs. The first meeting was nerve-wracking, but as I listened to others recount their experiences, I felt a sense of camaraderie. Hearing their stories of betrayal, loss, and eventual healing resonated deeply with me. It was comforting to know that I was not alone in my pain. I shared my own story, and the support I received from the group was overwhelming. They understood the complexities of navigating love after betrayal, and their encouragement helped me feel less isolated. As I continued to attend the meetings, I began to find closure in unexpected ways. I learned that healing is not a linear process. It ebbs and flows, with moments of clarity and moments of doubt. But with each passing week, I felt myself growing. Stronger, more resilient. I was learning to trust myself again, to embrace my worth, and to let go of the guilt that had weighed me down. One day, I received a message from Sarah. It was a simple note, apologizing once again and expressing her hope that I was finding happiness. I felt a mix of emotions, sadness for what we had lost, but also a sense of peace. I realized that I had moved on enough to respond with kindness rather than anger. "Thank you for your message," I wrote back. "I'm doing well and focusing on my own healing. I wish you the best." As I hit send, I felt a weight lift. I was no longer bound by the anger and hurt that had consumed me for so long. I had taken control of my narrative, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next. Months later, I found myself sitting in a cozy cafe, sipping coffee and reading a book. The sun streamed through the window, casting a warm glow over the room. I felt a sense of contentment wash over me, a feeling I hadn't experienced in a long time. I realized that I had come to terms with my past and that I was ready to open my heart again, but this time with caution. I had learned valuable lessons about love, trust, and the importance of self-worth. I understood that while the scars of betrayal would always remain, they did not define me. I was not just a victim of infidelity. I was a survivor, someone who had emerged from the darkness stronger and more resilient. As I looked out the window, I felt a sense of hope for the future. I knew that life would continue to throw challenges my way, but I was no longer afraid. I had learned to embrace the uncertainty and to trust myself. I was ready to write the next chapter of my life, one filled with possibility, growth, and the promise of new beginnings. In that moment, I smiled to myself, knowing that I had taken the first steps toward healing and that I was finally reclaiming my life. I was ready to love again, not just others, but myself first and foremost. And with that, I closed my book, took a deep breath, and stepped out into the world, ready for whatever came next.